Welcome to my Connect Lounge talk here. So this is about entities. This is about giving your data meaning in Connect. So my plan for the talk, I'm going to just do a little bit of an intro. I'm kind of halfway through it already. I'm going to give a Connect overview. I'm going to talk about what is an entity, what entities and applications and entities in the wild here. So just a little bit about me. My name's Derek Endres. I'm a senior manager for the Product Readiness Guild. This is a team inside of AVEVA R&D. Been working for AVEVA, previously OSI Soft, for 15 years. I started as a tech support engineer, did field service, worked as a software developer, worked as a senior software developer, did research for our CTO team, and now I'm here doing Product Readiness Guild, which is working with a lot of Lighthouse customers and partners adopting our early technology. A lot of this is really focused in on things on Connect. There's my email address and hopefully a QR code that will send emails to me. All right, so I like to show this slide just as a level set of understanding what Connect is. If you're here in the Connect Lounge, you've probably seen this slide. You probably know what Connect is, but I just like to kind of point out, the 5 core capabilities of Connect. So, Connect is really built to have connectivity, data management and visualization, collaboration, AI analytics, and applications, all in one industrial platform. It's purpose-built for industry. It lets you aggregate, contextualize, and securely share data across sites and data types with less friction. Today, I'm going to be focused in on the data management part here. That's entities. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about, actually entirely my whole presentation today, is going to be talking about new features in Connect. So we are enhancing the way you manage and find and use the information that matters to you most. Basically, in I think it's about 45 minutes or so, there's going to be a Connect roadmap talk. I'm going to highly encourage you, if you find any of this interesting, to go to that talk. There's going to have a lot more information about different features that are coming into Connect soon, and especially about entities. But let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into what entities are here. So we're going to get a little bit of technical. Hopefully that's good here for this crowd. But entities are a modular contextual representation of industrial objects. Entities can be lots of different things, including assets, documents, and visualizations. Entities are composed of discrete components derived from types and are capable of being connected to other industrial data types through relationships. So there, I've got my entity definition table there. I've got a couple things highlighted. There's some things that you would expect on what an entity is. You've got a name, description, ID, things like that you might always expect. We have some things that aren't listed here, like modified, created by date, things like that may not matter that much to most people. The things in bold are what's really important about understanding what an entity is in Connect. So the class ID describes what sort of entity this is. Like I said earlier, this could be an asset, this could be a documentation, could be a document, this could be visualization. So that's going to be stored there as a string in the class ID. This helps you identify what kind of entity it is. The other 3 things that are really important are properties, relationships, and components, and we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. So we'll start off with properties. Properties are very similar to metadata. I could probably have just written that in one word here on the slide and moved on, but I'll explain it a little bit more in detail. So properties are, basically a key value pair with optional UOM and some other describing information there. So you can see the JSON on the screen. I get to present JSON on screens. It's awesome. All right, so some of the entity property examples are things like latitude, longitude. You might have something like manufacturer, serial number. You have all this information that might describe it to better understand, what your entity is or what your asset is, depending on what kind of entity you're talking about. Components. So this is one of the other key new things here for entities to talk about. So from this perspective of different roles, an entity can mean different things. So I like to think of components as building blocks. Basically, you can think of entity as having a composition of these types or of these different components there, and these are building blocks that make your entity. So, if we look at our friendly wind turbine here, GEO1, it can mean a lot of different things to different people. There can be, you can think of it as a renewable asset. You can think of it as a wind turbine. You might think of it as, something that you have to do maintenance on. So you can take these different components, build it up together, and build your entity this way. So the advantages of this component idea is that users can get to the information they care about faster by using the component. So if we think about our wind turbine over here, we can see that it's built up of three different components. We have a renewable asset component, we have a wind turbine component, and then we have a GE asset component. And some of the properties, some of the relationships that exist on our entity or of our wind turbine are going to be just coming from and derived directly from those different components. So if you're saying, hey, I'm only interested in, like the data science part of the wind turbine. I only care about vibration analysis. You can ask for that information from by just calling into the wind turbine part of the component of our entity. Other one I wanted to talk about. So this is the third bolded part of my what an entity is. Contains relationships. So relationships are going to be something new in Connect. A relationship is an association between objects, and these objects can have many relationships to other objects. They're defined on an object, and they specify both a target type and a target ID. So in this case, we have our GE01 wind turbine kind of sitting there in the middle of our picture, and we can see there's 5 different relationships defined. So we have a relationship between our asset and maybe its parent asset if you're thinking of like a hierarchy. So you have a wind farm as a full, as its parent, and then you have the individual wind turbine there. So this would be like an entity to entity relationship, and really it's asset to asset as the specific types of entities there. From the second one we see there in the relationship, this is the relationship between the entity and its stream. So, if you think about an asset out in the field, if you think about if you're coming from data from Pi, from an element, it's going to have underlying Pi tags. This is your relationship that you're seeing here where you have your asset going to its streams. Entities can also be related to other entities such as the documents here. So this is that relationship we're seeing there with number 3. Events that exist inside of Connect will have a relationship to a parent entity and also can have other weaker relationships to other entities. So that's what we're seeing there in 4. And then 5, same thing, if you create a visualization inside of Connect, it will actually create this relationship between your visualization and your entity. So that way you can understand, how they're connected to each other. All right, so we are now going to go into a video here. So we're looking at our Graph Navigator, our Graph Explorer here, where we look at this. We've probably seen this a little bit earlier. I've got a video, but I'm going to kind of stop it at a couple of different spots to kind of highlight different things. So this is our view of our entity navigator, like I just said. So as I go, we're going to have GE01 here. So here I'm going to click, let me go back. Let me see if I can work this from my screen here. So I'm going to click onto my visualization. We can see, that relationship that we have there. So this is highlighting the entity to visualization relationship. Then I can click over to its parent, and it's going to then, we can see all of the relationships that exist on its parent. So here we've kind of exploded out our view. We can see the different relationships we have. So as we explode this out, you can see that it has relationships to a lot of other entities, other assets. It also has relationships to a bunch of different streams. So at this point, I've expanded out all of the related children assets. I'm going to go ahead and hit pause here. And if you look at the right-hand side, I quickly did it through my cursor there. But you can see the underlying types that are creating the GE01 wind turbine. So these are the components that I was talking about, where you can see things like wind turbine, renewable asset there. Next, I'm going to go through and show the properties that exist on here. So this is that metadata that I was talking about, and you can see by the different groupings that some of these metadata come from the different types that exist, the different components that are making up our wind turbine. So these are defined on those components and then are going to be shared by anything that's built from the same common building blocks. Next, I click over to just show the entity relationships that exist on the GE01. And then I show the stream relationships that exist here on GE01. So you can get all this information from our entity right here. Finally, I'm going to click here and just kind of show what the aggregated view looks like of the properties. So this is not looking at each of the properties by component, but rather just the kind of resolved entity, if you will, that has all of our underlying properties. So if you want to look at all the properties, or if you want to look at them by components, you can get both sets of information. And again, a lot of times you'd put this metadata in here to facilitate searching and understanding what you're looking at in your assets. So the next demo I'm going to go through here is basically, okay, so now we've got a pretty good understanding of what entities are inside of Connect. I want to show using entities and what it does for you inside of Connect. So in this case, I'm going to walk through visualization and how entities are used there. So here I'm just going to create a canvas. I'm going to search for my asset, my entity that I'm going to base it on. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. I'm going to set a time context, hit OK, and I'm going to go and start to create my visualization. So we've probably seen a couple videos about how you can create visualizations. So I don't go into much detail here, but I'm going to just add a line chart, put it in here. As soon as I go to add data to it, so I'm just going to expand it first, I guess, then I'm going to add data to my line chart. Because I've already set my asset context, it knows all the underlying streams are probably what I'm going to want to build my visualization on. So it's going to automatically put that at the top, have that ready for me, and make it much easier for me to get to my data that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just click into that. Also going to show that you can add asset metadata if you want to. So if you want to bring any of that information across, you can. So I select a couple of streams that are related to my asset. Go ahead and hit apply. They show up there, perfect. And at this point I can hit save. It's going to save my visualization. It's going to associate it to my entity. And now anytime that I go to my graph, I will start to see this visualization being associated with this entity, and I can understand that these things are together. All right, so that's one spot that we can use entities and kind of showing how it's used inside Connect. Another spot that we can use entities is in data views. So if you've come to any of the other talks here in the Connect Lounge about virtual tables, about integrating with Databricks or Snowflake, they talk about using data views to send your data to one of those data lakes. So you can use entities to be the way that you organize and collect your stream data to send over there. So that's all this is showing right here is basically we're doing an entity query. We're asking for all of our GE wind turbines here, and it's going to bring this information, bring it into a table, and you can start to aggregate all of your data and put it into tables. So this is a good way to bring in your data easily and allow you to understand what's going on with it. So as I click into my query right here, we start to see this wide table that I've created. It's going to bring in every single turbine in there, and we're kind of what I call a wide table, where it's going to have all the results for each timestamp in here. You got lots of different settings for your data view, but yeah, there you go. Not lastly, I still got a couple more examples here. This is showing what entities look like in AVEVA Advanced Analytics. So you've probably heard some of the different talks about AVEVA Advanced Analytics and the power you can do there. Well, entities are tying across directly over to there. So once you get your AVEVA Advanced Analytics connection set up, you just kind of specify which entities you want to bring over. So if we look at the left-hand side, we have it in orange there. We're going to have some bioreactors. We're going to see that over on the right-hand side. We have the same twins now in AVEVA Advanced Analytics as we have as those entities. We have all the underlying streams there brought across as sensors into Advanced Analytics. So you have the same information that you have, the same hierarchy that you might have set up in your knowledge graph there, and Connect brought over to Advanced Analytics. So I kind of showed it in a lot of different applications. One of the things I always like to point out about entities is basically the graph nature of it. So we showed the Graph Explorer earlier. We showed what it looks like. So if you want to, if you're somebody who's a little more techie, a little bit more diving into the weeds here, you can start to explore the graph yourself using the GraphQL console. So I like to kind of point out some of the different capabilities of it here. Basically, this is kind of a click-through way that you can set up a GraphQL query to understand your entity and its relationships. So you can kind of click through on the left-hand side there. You can add data to request. You can filter things. You can go through and, like I say, you can have it kind of specify the graph response that you want. The query is constructed for you, and then on the right-hand side, you kind of will get what the JSON response would be like for this query. Lastly, I didn't have time to really show how all the different ways that you can bring entities into Connect. So instead, I just kind of went with this screenshot here, and I'm going to talk through some of them. So there's lots of different ways to get entities into Connect. Some of the most popular ways are going to probably be there on the bottom left-hand side. Coming from a AVEVA Pi system. So your Pi to Connect instance will send your assets and convert them into entities. Your AVEVA historian, the historian agent, will convert your assets into entities and start to build those relationships for you. Same thing with the MES agent that exists. So basically, these on-prem agents, all of the AVEVA products are going to funnel and create your entities for you, build those relationships, build those components, build everything out that it can from the underlying on-prem system into Connect for you. If you're somebody who is more interested in, bringing in outside data that doesn't come from an AVEVA product, that's fine. You can use something like the APIs and build it yourself. You can also use open message format to do this. So there's a new part of open message format 2.0, it's just called. Basically, you can use this to specify and create your entities this way. And you can also use flows. Flows interact with the APIs, and you can use flows to create your entities. So there's lots of different ways to do this. Yeah. So at this point, I'm kind of running out of my time here. So what I want to go through is just kind of bring us back to how does this all fit? Where does entities fit into Connect? Just to kind of remind you. So, I talked a lot about our data management thing. There's a lot of different parts of Connect. Entities are a core feature inside of Connect that everything else is going to be built on and use. So just wanted to bring us back to there. And then I think my slide here has a couple of wrong times. I'm going to point out a couple of different talks to go to. There's a digital twin builder talk at the end of today. It's going to talk about how you can use AI to help you build these entities that I talked about. Immediately after this talk is going to be a communities-based talk. That's going to be a good talk to come to learn about AVEVA community or Connect communities. And then, as I mentioned, in about 35 minutes, there's going to be the Connect roadmap talk. Those are all going to be good talks to go to find out more about Connect. With that, I'm going to leave this slide up here, which is basically if you are interested in entities and getting to see our new things that we're doing in Connect, definitely sign up here for our early access program.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good.